Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 32, Making the Most of a Conference.
Does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Hello, welcome to Small Biz Life. My name's Kristen Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And we are your co-hosts on this journey through what we call the small biz life. Because walking this journey is not just about 9 to 5. This is 24/7, 365. And we're helping you manage that journey through it.
Yes, and we're not going with the reality format, so this is just not a recording of us going through our lives talking about what we're doing every day. We're actually discussing a lot of the things we've learned in our own journey.
Yeah, and I think this week's episode is actually really timely for us because Jeff just got back from a conference, and I'm going to a conference this week. So what conference did you go to?
I just got back from the Capital Gaming Expo in Ottawa.
Oh, very exciting. And this week I'm going to launch out in Atlanta.
Woohoo.
So
that was a lot of fun last year.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun last year. Launch Out is actually having 3 conventions this year, one in Atlanta, one in St. Louis, and one in Southern California. And if you want more information on the Launch Out conferences, you can go to launchoutconference.com and check that out. But so this week, what we want to talk about is we want to talk about what you should do before you leave for the conference, while you're there, and when you get home.
Yeah.
Okay, because the conference actually starts, like for me, I'm already planning the conference and I don't leave, for another 4 or 5 days. So I think it's really important that you do a little bit of pregame and a little bit of postgame when you go to a conference.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I do this for every conference I go to. You think, oh, Capital Gaming Expo, he's going there to play games. And I did play a game there and I had a lot of fun doing it. But that was not my ulterior motive.
Before you go, the first thing you need to do is you need to know why you're going. What is your purpose?
Yes.
And so why did you go to that conference?
Largely, it was one, to start to get a feeling of how these conferences flow. I've never actually been to a geeky conference before. I've been to, IT conferences, which are not geeky at all.
They're geeky in a different way.
They're geeky in a different way, but like an entertainment geeky conference. And with what I'm doing with World Builders Anvil, I need to know kind of how they go, meet some people who are involved in them mainly.
And you were trying to see what was there to see if that's your audience.
Yeah.
And if there are speaking opportunities or panel opportunities for you in the future.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to launch out because a number of people I know are going. I got to meet them last year and network with them last year. I have some clients that are going to be there. And so I'm going to reinforce some relationships, to build some new relationships, and also to plan for St. Louis, because we're probably going to go to St. Louis this summer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, to get our bearings around how things are set up this year and, build new relationships and reinforce some old ones.
Awesome.
Okay. So knowing why is really important because it's going to dictate what you do.
Yeah. If your main purpose to go to a conference is because you need the information to get better at what you're doing, your focus needs to be on going to the workshops, going to the stages, absorbing as much of the content as possible. Networking is always a goal at any conference as part of the conference experience. You could just do it online otherwise. If that's your goal, figure out every one that you might even think you might learn something from.
The first thing that you should figure out is you should figure out what workshops and panels you want to attend. Most conferences are jam-packed.
Yeah.
And a lot of conferences have multiple workshops going on at the same time.
And if they're bigger, and I really like these, are when they're large enough to where you can have tracks. So if there's a different theme of thing that you want to do, you can be in workshops for all of, or at least a good chunk of an entire conference.
Right. So I went to a conference a couple years ago when I was on the Board of Education, and one of the tracks they had was like a financial track. It was all about like budgeting and financials. And so I kind of stayed on that track for most of the conference because I was involved in the budgeting process on the board. And that's what I really wanted to strengthen while I was there. So if you figure out ahead of time what panels you want to go to, what workshops you want to go to, it's going to make things less stressful when you're there because your schedule's already planned out. I would also recommend that you pick times to decompress because you are going to be running around like a crazy person for a couple days.
5 minutes to the next panel.
Right, exactly. So, if there are some parts where you look at the speakers during that time block and you're like, you know what, nobody really resonates with me, take that time to like go sit and decompress.
And here are two things to keep in mind for those of you who are going mainly to network, especially with influencers, people you want to connect with because they can, if you can connect with them, they can help grow your platform, or maybe there's some synergy between what the two of you are doing. These are actually the two most important things as well. You're picking workshops not based necessarily on the content of the workshop, but on who's giving the workshop. And the other thing is your decompression time when you go to sit at the bar at the convention center or at the restaurant to get a meal. The first thing you're doing is you're going into your social media and updating where you are and how long you'll be there. So people who want to interact with you, and the longer you've been doing it, the more likely there will actually be people to do that. But it's a good practice to get into in either way, is it'll give them a chance to come over and sit down. Maybe they'll eat while you eat and you can talk a little bit as well.
Right. That's the thing. You've got to think about opportunities to connect with people. And that's a really good way to do it. I know a lot of the authors and speakers I follow, if they go to a convention, they will let their fans know ahead of time, on this day at this time, I will be here. I'd love to have you meet up with me. So you want to check to see if there are any interesting meetups.
Yeah.
Either sponsors, attendees, or speakers. A lot of times they will have their own unrelated events during the conference. So you're going to want to see. But
they'll usually be like right in that area. I know I was in a conference in Mystic without pizza for all of those who know the movie. But there were events every night after the conference. And the conference actually liked the idea. So the conference actually helped spread the word. But all conferences don't necessarily do that. So, especially if they're people you want to meet, check out their website to see if they have anything planned that isn't mentioned on the conference.
And we kind of, when we were really involved with politics and we were going to some of the state and national conventions, we found that there were a lot of those events where, this person running for governor is having an after hours event. And you kind of had to hear about it. It wasn't like there was no schedule to let you know when those things were going on. Yeah. And there are a lot of those things that happen during conferences.
Yes.
So some of them are like officially sanctioned and they're easy to find out about. Some of them, one of the things we recommend that you do is you connect with interesting speakers and interesting panelists on social media before you go.
Yeah.
So you want to look at this schedule as early as you can, connect with these people on social media, and then see if they're organizing any events.
And one of the things to think about too is if you're trying to meet a whole bunch of podcasters or authors or whatever your niche is, whatever your main content delivery is, and you're trying to find people to help spread the word about you, one of the things you can do as a person visiting the conference is say, I don't see anything like this for authors. So let me contact the authors who have panels, invite them all over to a meetup. I'll organize the meetup for them at a local restaurant. And then I'll bring them all in there. Anyone from the conference will help spread the word around the conference, get them another opportunity to get in front of their fans. They'll appreciate that. And you can actually be a hero, even if it's just in a minor way.
Exactly. And try to find, especially if you're on Twitter or Instagram, try to find the hashtag for the conference before you go. A lot of times people start tweeting about the conference beforehand. That will help you connect with other people who are going.
And that was actually shocked for the Ottawa conference. I didn't see a hashtag for it, which kind of shocked me.
That's really
So
odd.
I kept doing at the conference when I was talking, which is another way to do it. But usually there's a hashtag for the conference because people feel like they need hashtags, which is good because as a Twitter user, I love hashtags because that's how I find the content I'm looking for.
Yeah. So most conferences will have a hashtag for the conference, and they usually figure out what it's going to be before.
So it's the same on Instagram. It's the same on Twitter. Any place is a hashtag social media.
Exactly. Okay. So a couple things about the venue. Make sure that you familiar yourself with the venue online. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the area.
Yeah.
So is there food around you? Is it within walking distance of your hotel? Is it in the hotel? I gotta say, I highly recommend staying in the conference hotel.
Yeah.
Whichever hotel they recommend. We did that last year when we went to launch out. And usually we had kind of looked for the cheapest hotels that we could find. And you are so much more connected to the people who go if you stay at the conference hotel.
I know I was a bit jealous because I was having some really bad allergy issues when I went down there. And when I came back, my ears felt like they were literally going to explode the entire plane flight back. But it caused me to sleep more. But then Kristen would be downstairs playing cards with the people in the conference room afterwards. So her networking got to continue. I unfortunately had to put that aside because I just couldn't do it last year. But those are the impromptu activities on top of which will only happen if you're around the area and you see, wait, why are those people in the conference all gathered in the lobby, scaring off all of the other conference goers for other conferences?
Yeah, we had such a good time just hanging out in the lobby. Somebody brought Cards Against Humanity, and there were like 20 of us sitting around a table playing Cards Against Humanity.
Which is a very appropriate game to play in a lobby.
Yeah, no, not really. That's pretty bad. But it was a really good way to connect with people. So if you can, stay in the conference hotel because it is completely worth it. It allows you to extend that networking. And a lot of times too, you can meet somebody one day and say, hey, let's have breakfast, at the hotel in the morning. Yeah. And it allows you to keep that networking going. Make sure that you pack appropriately. Depending on the conference you're going to, they don't have an official dress code, but there's kind of an unspoken dress code. The conference that you went to, everybody was dressed as Jedis and Ewoks and superheroes. And
well, I was going to say there wasn't really a lot of Star Wars cosplay where I went, but there was a lot of cosplay, all kinds of different things. And there was also this thing called live action role playing, which people dress up and then they have weapons that are made of foam and then they beat each other, which doesn't really super interests me, but they also look kind of like cosplayers because some of them put a tremendous amount of money into these costumes and they look really cool. And so I appreciate it, but it's not my cup of tea.
So wearing a business suit to that kind of conference would not be appropriate.
That's the great thing with being geeks.
Everything's appropriate.
Everything goes. Okay. Because then they're like, is he one of the Doctor Who's? Wait, I don't know that costume.
Maybe you go in a suit just to throw people off.
Well, Dave dressed much nicer than me, and he had a hat on, and he was joking that he was the 13th Doctor, and I was his companion, so I was making scared faces whenever I was walking behind him.
Oh, very good. If you're going to a business conference, usually you're dressing, somewhere between full business and business casual. Just kind of know like what.
And a lot of it's knowing your profession. If it's a professional conference, it's easier. Like in IT conferences, I dress the same way I go to work. essentially a business casual style shirt and jeans.
Yeah.
For a more professional conference, like for an accounting conference or something like that, you would probably be dressed up more business casual, and you could get away with business suits at those kind of conferences.
And I think most people understand that you're going to be sitting in this conference for hours and hours and hours a day. And then you're probably going to go out after the conference. Unless you are a presenter or you're a panelist at a business conference, business casual is probably the highest level you want to go.
I was about to say that, typically the presenters are all in suits, but then you see them an hour later and the tie is gone and they might or might not still be wearing the jacket.
Yeah. So, because here's the thing, you want to be comfortable enough to be able to sit through a long conference. No matter what you wear comfortable shoes. I've gone to conferences before people are in suits and ties and sneakers.
That's outrageous. I would never do that.
Because you're going to do a lot of walking. If you're one of those people that has a Fitbit like me, you're going to do 10,000 steps, no problem.
Yeah.
Every day of the conference. Because you're going to be moving a lot from room to room. You're going to be networking around the vendor area. So wear very comfortable shoes.
Yeah.
These conferences need to give you more time between events, because I think a lot of times conferences, they're so involved in their conference that they're not thinking of your need to network. And so they're trying to pack in everything they possibly can.
Adds more value. That's their thought.
I guess. Yeah. I've been to some conferences where they've given you a 45-minute break in the morning, an hour for lunch, and then a 45-minute break in the afternoon. And that's really nice.
A lot of them, too, will typically in the morning will have a sort of light, sort of continental style breakfast with networking for 30 or 45 minutes, which is part of the registration time.
Yeah.
So when you're in the registration time, there's actually food just sitting right there.
Yep. So a couple administrative things. You want to make sure that you pack business cards. I know a lot of us, we don't use business cards in day-to-day anymore.
I have a website. Why would I have a business card?
Right, exactly. But you're going to want business cards to hand out at the conference. If you're using something like MailChimp or Aweber for your email list, you're going to want to make sure that you download their app. I think for MailChimp, it's called Subscribe. For Aweber, it's called Atom.
And I know the Aweber one will work offline.
The MailChimp one does too.
I was going to say, I would assume at this point, most of them do.
Yeah, so it's great because if you're at the conference and you don't have Wi-Fi, you can actually still put email addresses in these apps for people to sign up for your list, and it will sync when you're back online.
And here's another quick tip too. If you're there for networking purposes, there is a plugin for WordPress called Pretty Links. And what you do is you go create a pretty link let's say the website is smallbizlife.com/newsletter. You can create a link that goes straight to an opt-in page. Or you can call it the name of the conference, if you want to track that kind of thing, garduel.com/CGE 2016. And then, you have that on the card, and then they can actually go right to there and get into the newsletter when they get home on their phone. Just make sure that all of those kind of pages will work well mobile.
Right. Exactly. Because that's the thing. It's a lot of people, when you talk to somebody at a conference, a lot of times they're going to walk away and they're going to look you up. So, and they're going to do that on their mobile phone. So make sure that your site is mobile friendly. Also, make sure you do not want to be hooked up to your phone the whole time that you're there. So put an away message on your email addresses. Let people know when you're leaving, when you'll be back. And typically what I do is I actually give myself the day after the conference. And we'll talk about that when we talk about after you leave. I give myself the day I get home as a day to kind of recover and decompress. So I tell people I'm actually gone until the following day. So set up your away message so that you don't have to worry about your email while you're gone.
Awesome idea.
Last thing, the week before you go to a conference, get as much sleep as you possibly can, because you're going to wake up really early. You're going to stay up really late. You're going to be sleeping in a bed that is not your bed. So you might not sleep well while you're there. You're not going to get a lot of sleep.
Yes.
If you do this right, you are not going to get a lot of sleep. And we hope that you do it right. Those are our tips for before you go. Okay, so there's a lot of planning involved before you go. While you're there, you want to get there early. Okay, that means you want to get to the conference early so that you can register and you're not stuck in registration and miss something. And you also want to get to panels and workshops early. Because most people, they go to a panel or workshop interested in connecting with the speakers, and then they bother the speakers afterwards.
And there's a line of 500 people that want to do the same thing.
Right. If you go early, this may be an opportunity for you to meet with the speaker before they speak. Which,
once again, this goes to why it's important to know why you're going. If you're going mainly for the educational purposes, you don't want to do that because then you're missing you're probably going to miss the workshop before that one. Or you're going to have to leave early from that one, which I always find kind of rude. But if you're there, especially to network first, and this is an influencer that can either help you or you just want to know more about, you want to learn more about them, for whatever reason, that's your goal to meet this person. Drop the one before it, decompress before it, because you know that you want to be like there 15 minutes early to the next conference.
Right, exactly. We told you to set up time to decompress. We actually want you to take the time to do it.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we set up our schedule and then we completely throw it out the window once we get to the conference. Make sure that you take that time to decompress. Because especially if you're there to learn, you are going to be flooded with so much information so quickly.
Yeah, so I want to skip to another one right now. Listen for asks, signups. The first thing I listen for in every presentation, like especially in a main stage or at a workshop even, is will they supply me with their notes, with their PowerPoint? A lot of people will do it because they want you to sign up for their email list. I always do that because I learn better by listening, not by taking notes while I do it the first time. So typically whenever I go through any content online or whatever the first time, I strictly go through the content. I don't take notes. I just try and absorb in the totality of it.
Right, exactly.
And then I go back, for details.
Right. And if you're at a conference, whether you're a speaker or an attendee, if you're going to be doing a lot of networking, there are a couple different services that will allow people to text you to join your email list. One of those services is called Lead Digits by Lead Pages. There's another service that's called Join by Text. I know to get Lead Digits, you have to be a subscriber to Lead Pages. Join by Text, I think it's $20 a month. And that gets you up to 500 signups per month. They have other plans that you can contact them about. But if you know you're going to a big conference and you're going to be interacting with a lot of people, that might be a really good way to allow people to sign up. And I love when people do that at a conference.
Yeah.
The speaker will say, hey, if you want my notes for this, if you want my PowerPoint, just text, the name of the conference to this number. It's a 5-digit number. And don't worry about taking notes. And I love that because I hate taking notes during a conference. I just want to be able to sit there and absorb. But listen for those cues, and that'll let you know whether or not you need to take notes or you can just sign up for their list.
And this is going to bring us back to a point we hit on not too long ago. Once again, stay off your phone as much as possible. The temptation is when you go and to text that in to get the presentation notes sent to you and end up on part of their email list, don't do anything more than that. Either turn off your notifications. If you have a family or for whatever reason you're expecting, like there's potential bad news in your family, you're expecting something like that, use your do not disturb feature on your phone. Give the numbers you might hear from that you would need to respond to quickly. Allow them to come through and leave your do not disturb on the entire time you're in a workshop or a panel.
Right. The most annoying thing for a speaker is when your phone rings, your text messages, it is so distracting for a speaker.
And really for you too, it's distracting from learning. even if the sound's turned off, if you're looking and checking your Facebook updates and, whoa, someone just, retweeted me, that's wonderful, but that's not the time to deal with it.
Right. Exactly. Don't plan to see friends or family during the duration of the conference. Either go before or go after. Because the thing is, if you're going to do this right, you're going to wake up early. You're going to be networking with people, before the conference starts. You're going to go to the conference. You're going to be out, networking with people, late into the evening. You're going to go back to the hotel. You'll meet some more people at the hotel. If you want to get the most out of this, see family and friends before or after. Okay. Introduce yourselves to people that you sit next to. This is such a missed opportunity. A lot of people, they go to conferences, you're moving around to different rooms, you're sitting next to, different people in every single session you go to, and you just sit there and you play on your phone until the speaker starts. Introduce yourself to the people next to you. Ask them how they're enjoying the conference. Ask them what they do. Ask them where they're from. Ask for their card. Because you never know who you could be sitting next to. Your ideal customer could be sitting right next to you.
Or worse than that huge influencer that you respect could be sitting right next to you and you don't notice because you're playing on your phone the whole time.
I've made great connections at conferences just by saying hello to the person sitting next to me. I was at a conference about a year ago, and the woman sitting next to me was an accounting professor. And I told her about my website, and I gave her my card and we connected and she shared my site with her students. She was a gatekeeper for my avatar, right? I didn't even know. I had no idea. And I wouldn't have known if I had not said hello.
Yep.
So, everybody at a conference is there to meet other people. And sometimes people are really shy. So be that person. I mean, think about it. It's just one person next to you. It's not like you're saying, hey, hi, entire room. Let's connect. You're connecting with one person sitting next to you.
And I always thought it was neat. When I would go visit my grandmother, in the summer, we'd stay with her for a while. And we would go to church with her on Sunday. And she went to this small country Methodist church. But I always remembered it. It always stuck in my brain that there'd be a point of the service where they'd say, okay, now stand up, stretch out, introduce yourself to the people sitting around you. And where I went to churches with my mom, a Lutheran church, they never did that. But at the smaller church, they did do that. And I always thought it made me feel like welcomed. It really did.
Yeah. So you got to remember that when you're attending conferences, there are a lot of people that are there by themselves. Or maybe they're going with one other person, but they split up during the sessions. And so they don't really know anybody in the room either. So make some connections. Don't forget to ask people for their cards, right? And you've got your card. So usually if you ask for their card, they're going to ask you for yours. So that'll help you get rid of some of those business cards that you brought with you. And go see the vendors early. A lot of people wait until the end of the conference to see the vendors. The vendors are tired by the last day. A lot of them will leave early on the last day. So go see them early in the conference when they're refreshed, when they're excited, when, you're going to get the most benefit from interacting with them.
And I actually got a bonus one here too.
Ooh.
Be considerate, of the people around you, irregardless of the moment you're in. The person who's working at the food station, in the facility, the people cleaning up, everyone there. And especially if you're there for a networking purpose and you go in like that 15 minutes before the workshop for that big wig person that you really, really, really want to meet, and you get to meet them and talk to them, and you want to just like, well, I can just go to this other thing instead now because I've got what I wanted from here. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Sit down, enjoy their workshop. There's a reason you wanted to meet them. Don't lose perspective of your humanity for a few more chances at contacts.
Right. Exactly. That's really important. That was a good point. Very good. The biggest thing is that you want to remember why you're there and make the most of the time that you're there.
Yeah.
have a good time.
Mhm.
Conferences are exhausting, but they're so much fun.
Yeah. And some are long. Like literally one I went to had pre-conference on Thursday night and it had a post-conference Sunday morning. Or no, I'm sorry. It was like, I think it was Monday or Tuesday morning it went through.
Wow.
So it was like a 5-day conference with the pre and post conference. 5 days. Now I didn't go to all 5 days because the actual conference was a 3-day conference, but they had like a day and a half for educators and students, and then a day and a half at the end for whatever organization that they were, which is unimportant for this. But, there was just a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what you should do after you leave. So I highly recommend that the day after you get home is a day you take off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, don't plan client meetings that day. Don't plan major things in your business that day, because you're going to need time after the conference to sleep in a little bit, to kind of wrap up the conference, and to decompress.
And here's a good use of a newsletter to your audience. Talk to them about the conference you went to and the interesting people you met. Give links out to their websites. Be generous to all the people who you interacted with, at least the ones that you remember. It might be too long, to get everyone, but do your best to try and put a little story behind it and share it with your audience, because they're generally interested in what you do anyway, which is why they follow you.
Exactly. So a couple things you want to do after you get home. One of the first things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to thank the speakers and the organizers on social media.
Yeah.
Especially the people that you connected with. If you took some time to talk to them, if they, gave you some insight outside their speech, if their speech was just great, if you got a lot out of it, thank them on social media, give them a shout out, help your followers connect with them as well.
Yeah. And I thought it was really cool. And this kind of played out for me during the conference, but it was, once again, I was listening for those asks. I went to a panel given by 4 indie game designers, guys who've actually published games, and that's what they do, or part of what they do in their life. One of the first asks, and the guy repeated it near the end, was make sure that the conference knows what a great workshop this was so that they'll do it again next year. And the whole point was to help teach people how to do indie gaming. So first thing I do when I walk out of there, I plop onto my phone. I hit up Twitter. I go to the Facebook page, but they had given me their cards. So the ones that had Twitter, I linked them to it, and I thanked them and at this conference saying what a great panel this was. And I learned so much. And they then would tag in the 2 other people who I didn't have the Twitter accounts for onto there. I ended up with 4 new followers on Twitter. And these are actual followers, not people who are just doing it for a second to get me to like them back, and then they'll drop me in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And you can make a lot of good connections. And that's the way that you can get influencers to follow you back on social media. So, lots of opportunities there. Just by thanking the speakers and the organizers. This is where you're going to go back and you're going to confirm the signups to get the slides and your notes. Because remember, we told you to stay off your phone while you're at the conference. So when you get back, make sure, take a look at all those texts that you sent. Because typically what happens is you'll get a text back from them. Go back and look for, the confirmation emails to make sure that you get that information.
And depending on their subscription service, that might be in your spam box. It could be in a blog tab or one of those little tabs that Google likes to create for you if you haven't turned them off like I have. So it might be somewhere. So search for their domain or something like that just to see if you can find their email.
Right. You want to follow up with any contacts. So people that you got business cards from, make sure that you follow up with them. And it can just be something as simple as, hey, name of person. It was great connecting with you at the conference. Please let me know if there's anything that I can do for you in the future. I'd love to be able to connect again. That's it.
Or at so-and-so, great workshop on blah.
Right.
Pound thanks.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of the, and the thing that you've got to remember is that lots of people made contacts at the conference and they may not get back to you for a week.
Especially the more famous they are to start off with, the more contacts they probably made, and they might even miss the tweet to them.
Right. But I'm talking about following up via email.
Yeah.
Because once you've got the card, if you can send them an email, do it.
Yeah. That's the best way. Yeah,
right. That's the best way is get into their email box. But it might take them a while to get back to you. Do not add all those people to your email list.
No.
That is a violation of canned spam, which is the federal law that governs, spam in your email. If, you can use one of the apps that we talked about in the beginning, you can
do it with their permission.
Don't just say, oh, I collected 40 cards. I'm going to add 40 people to my email list. Okay. If they say, oh, yeah, I'd love to get your email list, like if that comes up in the conversation, have like a pen or a marker in your pocket and put a star on that card. But don't just add everybody. Okay. You have to have affirmative consent. Okay. In order to be able to add people to your email list. And then the last thing is that after you've gone through and you've thanked the speakers and organizers on social media, you've confirmed the signups and you're getting slides and notes, and you followed up with all of those contacts, sit down at the end of that first day and make a note of the value that you received, the things that you learned, and decide if you're going to go again next year.
And why you'd want to. Because maybe there's no more value for you to learn there. Maybe it's strictly networking. Or maybe you're like, this is a good place for me to maintain relationships with my clients, like Kristen's doing. Whatever it is, know why. Be intentional with your actions.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, your role might change. You might say, you know what, next year I want to be a speaker. I'm going to go back to their website and see what the deadline was this year. So that way I can, because most conferences happen at the same time every year. So if you go to a conference in July and the speaker deadline was in February, next January, you want to be looking for that speaker application.
Yes. And what they want you to supply them with. Exactly.
But so, you can kind of make a note of that and put triggers in something like Nosby or in your calendar to remind you.
Yes. And make sure the reminders are up. And here's what I do. I do have some long-term things in my calendar. And by default, Google does not always add in reminders. But the further out it is, I always double check to make sure not only do I have a reminder for when I have to leave, but maybe one a week or two out before that as well. You can create multiple reminders to remind you, oh, hey, Jeff, you have 2 more weeks to get that thing that you had all year. You've had all year to get this ready, and now you have 2 weeks left. You better really start it now.
Right. By the time you're done with your wrap up, you should decide whether or not you're going to go the following year. So that way you can start budgeting. You can start looking for, a lot of conferences have early bird sign up discounts. They're going to be looking for speakers. It's easier to get into the host hotel if you book early. Don't do what I did. I decided I was going to go to launch out about 6 days before the conference. And so I paid more for the room. I paid more for the flights. If you decide that you want to go to a conference, you can book everything early, save yourself a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for those of you that are going to launch out Atlanta, I will see you guys next week. Hopefully this will get you interested in looking at some conferences that would be good for you and your business. There are some great websites out there. If you type in the type of conference you're looking for, there are a lot of aggregator sites that create lists of conferences.
Yeah.
Go through those lists and see what looks interesting to you. A lot of times they'll tell you who the past speakers were, who this year's speakers are going to be. And it's just a really good opportunity for you to get away, get some planning done, learn a lot, connect with a lot of people, and just have a good time and meet with like-minded people. I think a lot of us, we get frustrated because maybe our circle of friends, they're not business owners. They don't understand what it's like to be in business. When you go to a conference that's full of small business owners, like you just come back so charged up.
Yeah.
Because you're like, people understand. Yay. So, or you go to a conference for authors and those authors there understand what you're going through.
Yes. You realize that those struggles and concerns that you have are not unique and a plague that has been sent down upon you. It is actually something probably very common.
Yep. So we hope that you will attend at least one conference this year. And if you do, if there's a great conference that you've attended in the past, go to smallbizlife.com and look for the show notes for episode 32 and comment with what that conference was.
Yeah.
Or if you're in the Facebook group, let us know what conferences you think are great, so that we can kind of connect and figure out what conferences we might want to attend this year.
Awesome.
So have a great week, guys, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Small Biz Life. If you enjoyed the show, please take a few minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher. Please visit smallbizlife.com to view today's show notes, take this week's poll, join the Facebook community, follow us on Twitter, or submit a question for the mailbag. Support the show by checking the resources page or by going to smallbizlife.com/Amazon whenever you shop.
This was Small Biz Life. Small Biz Life.